Farms Homestead. So today I'm doing the final part to my incubating, candling, and hatching chicks video. If you watched my previous video, it was the collection of hatching eggs, setting them in an incubator, running an incubator, and actually the initial couple of candlings. I let time get away from me and I did not finish that last set of candling and the actual hatching on that video. So we're doing a part 2 so that we can see that here. So my eggs today are actually a separate batch of eggs from what were in the first video. And we're at day 19 on these eggs. This is typically when people do what they call lockdown. That's where they take all of the eggs out of the turner, put them in a tray, and leave them alone with no agitation, no turning for the last 3 days of incubation. Now, what I have found after hatching a lot of eggs is that I have a higher hatch rate if I keep those eggs turning right up until hatch. So I'm actually not going to lock down my eggs. I'm going to leave them in the turner, but I will do a final candling today. I left in some eggs that looked clear at the last candling, just so you can see the dramatic difference in a fertile egg 3 days before hatch versus one that did not finish developing and or was clear from the beginning. So let's get started. Okay, so final day of candling, and these are ready to hatch in just 3 days. You'll see on these eggs the air sac has gotten really large. Everything down in the bottom is developed chick. So this chick has a little air sac when it starts emerging so it won't suffocate. All of these eggs I candled the other day and they were all developing as is expected. As you can see, they're all dark on the bottom with a nice big air sac on the top, and some of these you can actually see the chick. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear the chicks chirping. Here's a good example of one where you can see the little shadow of the chick in there. Another one where you can see the chick really well. So all these were pre-candled and were fertile. This tray of eggs is actually at 18 days. It will hatch 1 day after my other tray that I just showed you. And this is the one that I left some eggs in that did not appear to be fertile. This one at 18 days is clearly not fertile at this point. It's possible that it was and it quit developing. This is another example. This egg is not going to hatch. This is a clear egg. Again, we're at day 18. So what day 18 eggs, similar to the ones we looked at in the last tray, you're going to have a very defined air cell and dark chick below. This at one point appears to have been fertile, but it is not developing at this point. Yes, these two I pulled out the other day. You can actually see in this one what they call a blood ring. So at some point this was developing, but has stalled out for some reason. A problem with the embryo. Same here. At one point this appears to have been developing, but now this is ceased. Okay, so we're gonna throw these few eggs back in. They'll hatch 1 day after my other tray. Now my setup on my incubator, I have 3 trays that will turn back and forth that will hold 2 trays of eggs. I only have one tray in each. So I've moved the ones that are least in my incubator to the top, and the ones that are hatching in 3 days are here at the bottom. Down here at the very bottom, you can see I have hatching trays set up. So I'm going to leave this turner on where these eggs will continue to rotate back and forth. But as the chicks hatch, they will drop down to this little tray down here. It's not much of a drop, and it's not going to hurt them. I've done this before. They'll be able to just kind of walk around in these trays. The reason I use these trays, because they give the chicks' feet some grip. If you put the chicks on a slick surface like is in the bottom of this incubator, they'll have trouble with their legs splaying out. So if you give them a little traction, they won't do that. So this is where these eggs are going to stay for the next 3 days in the turner. We'll come back on hatch day. One other thing I will do is crank my humidity up in the next 3 days so the air sacs don't continue to evaporate at a rapid rate, and so that the chicks have plenty of moisture when they do start hatching, so they don't get glued into the membranes of the eggshell. This is just how the turner rotates from side to side, so it goes pretty gently. It is hatch day, so we have a bunch of little chicks down here at the bottom. I've already taken 20 out to the little brooder, and looks like we still have more back up in here hatching. We're going to go ahead and grab this batch out and leave the rest alone. So we got 18 more biddies here. These are production red, Rhode Island red, and black Orpington. So the little brooder box that I have is actually a little box that I believe is supposed to be a little rabbit box. It came with a metal tray that slides in on the bottom, and I've ended up putting a grate over that metal tray. I put wood chips into the actual tray. So here's all our little bees. We got 38 right now. And I believe I had somewhere around 50 eggs in that 2-day batch. We've got them fresh water in there. Mainly at this point they need a heat source, so they're going to crowd under this light. I don't use heating lamps just because I feel like they're so dangerous. And I like to keep the lid closed on my brooder box because I have a cat. If I use a heat lamp, I have to leave the lid off and set it back off of them a little bit, and then that leaves them open for attack by my cat. The chicks need a heat and light source for about the first 4 weeks of life. Initially, after hatching, your target temperature is the same as the incubator, about 100 degrees, and you can drop it by about 5 degrees every week up until they're 4 weeks, but keep a light and warmth and heat source on them, otherwise you'll lose all your chicks. They have to have heat. Now, as mentioned, I don't use a heat lamp. I do try to get 75 or 100 watt bulbs. They're hard to find now. Everything's LED and doesn't put off much heat. But if you can find the 75 watt or 100 watt bulbs on the black market, then that's what you'll want to use. But certainly if you can't find those, then a heat lamp will work. Just be careful with how you set it up so you don't start a fire. You'll definitely want them in a secured room, stall of some sort, or pen where predators can't get to them if they're in an open box with a heat lamp. This is how I set them up. A couple of lights in here. Nobody's over here yet, but they'll start venturing out. That's hatch day. So these chicks have access to chick starter. I do use medicated starter in the early few weeks with the chicks. And fresh water, and that's all they need.